Hi, hello and welcome back to F1 Challenge VB. My name is Mephisto and our journey through the history of Formula 1 continues today with the third round of the 1963 season, the Dutch Grand Prix. It was held on the 23rd of June, it had 21 entries, 19 of them took part in the race with 8 ending up retiring. The race consisted of 80 laps completed in 2 hours, 8 minutes and 14 seconds. Jim Clark started the race from pole with Graham Hill in 2nd, McLaren 3rd, Brabham 4th, Surtees 5th and Richie Ginter started from 6th. Clark drove superbly to win the Dutch Grand Prix from Gurney, who finished 2nd and was 1 lap down. Surtees crossed the line in 3rd, he was also 1 lap down. Ireland finished 4th, he was 1 lap down as well. Ginter took the 5th spot, he was also 1 lap down. And rounding off the top 6 was Ludovico Scarfiotti, who was 2 laps behind. Jim Clark was also the fastest man of the race and he posted a lap time of 1 minute 33.7 seconds. Greetings from the sand dunes of Zandvoort in the Netherlands, where a lap starts off with a quick sprint down into turn 1, a tight right-hander. Take it easy coming out of the corner as using too much power can result in a spin. We then come through turn 2, a medium speed left-right chicane that leads straight into turn 3, a tight left-hand hairpin. Once again, don't use too much power on the corner exit as you could lose the rear of the car. From here we move on and into turn 7, a medium speed right-hander. Keep it clean and you should be fine through here. Eventually we make our way into turn 12, another medium speed right-hander. This leads into turn 13, the last corner of the track, a fast right-hand sweeper, which brings us around onto the main straight, and that is a lap around the spectacular Zandvoort circuit. And here we are in qualifying, coming around to start our flying lap. I brake just after the finish line, and as you can see that was a bit late, although under normal circumstances that would have been way too early. However, things didn't work out that way. As I said at the beginning of the season, the brakes on these cars are absolutely useless, really. As we take a look at the previous Grand Prix winners here at the Dutch Grand Prix, last time we managed to win here was in 1961, under quite interesting circumstances, really. As we take a look at the grid lineup, and we have Jim Clark on pole with Graham Hill in 2nd, John Surtees 3rd, 4th is Ennis Ireland. In 5th we have Bruce McLaren and Tony Maggs rounding off the top 6. 7th is Richie Ginter, followed by Karel Godin de Beaufort in 8th. 9th is Jack Brabham, 8th Joe Siffert, 10th Joe Siffert, sorry. 11th Gerhard Mitter, 12th Trintignant, 13th Dan Gurney, 14th Joe Bonnier, 15th is Lorenzo Bandini, followed by Ludovico Scarfiotti in 16th. Then in 17th we have Hap Sharp, followed by Phil Hill in 18th. 19th is Jim Hall, then we have Giancarlo Baghetti in 20th. Chris Amon is 21st, 22nd Maston Gregory. Tony September is 23rd, and obviously Andy Higgs starting from the rear in 24th. So that is a grid lineup for the 1963 Dutch Grand Prix. Hopefully a good race. I would really like to finally finish a race. I don't care about points at this moment, but I would like to finish a race because, well, the first 2 races this season weren't very good. And we are off. I already overtook Chris Amon and Tony September. We are 22nd. I passed Jim Hall as well. Then Maston Gregory on the outside here through turn 1 as we settle behind Giancarlo Baghetti. We are now in 20th, so we managed to gain 3 spots there quite easily. Hopefully we can continue earning spots and move up a few more places. Again, the most important thing today is to try and finish the race. Obviously, if we manage to win gain points, that would be absolutely fantastic. As we have another look at the start, and quite slow on my end. I was kind of having problems figuring out how much clutch to use, but figured it out in the end, as it's obviously proven here. I didn't kill the engine, so that's good, right? So, and even managed to gain a couple of positions as we are chasing after Giancarlo Baghetti. Later on, about halfway through the opening lap, we saw a couple of cars there at the side losing control, then eventually managed to overtake Phil Hill. We are in 18th. Dan Gurney is out of the race, 17th. There are cars all over the track. We move up into 15th now, right behind Baghetti once again as we come through the penultimate corner here. There's a BRP at the side of the track there, and he is out of the Grand Prix as well, as we now have a look at some replays. First off, Dan Gurney, who loses control of the number 6 car and ends up at the side of the road and retires. After that, then we have a replay of Innes Ireland, who loses control of his BRP, however manages to catch it quite beautifully. He's back in the race, however disaster strikes when his engine decides that it had more than enough. Although it looks like Ireland is still wanting to go, as someone in the back kind of loses control of their car. Here Ireland is still going strong, however he eventually pulls to the side, realizes that it's his race is over, and well, retires, as we now see a replay of Joe Siffert, who was behind Ireland, losing control of his car there and ends up at the side of the road. Backs up slowly onto the racetrack, which is quite a dangerous thing to do. However, he will eventually end up retiring. As we now take a look at a replay of Phil Hill, who's coming into the pits to retire from the race, apparently with a gearbox problem, so that is that for him. And here is a replay of Chris Amon, who crashes into a stationary Ferrari. I'm not sure why the Ferrari was in the middle of the road, however the crash caused Amon's engine to start smoking, which is quite weird. And here we see a replay of Ludovico Scarfiotti, who loses control of his Ferrari, manages to then gain control of it, and for no reason whatsoever decides to stop it right in the middle of the track where everyone was racing. That's kind of dumb of him. As we now take a look at a replay of Jack Brabham, who loses control of the number 5 car and ends up at the side of the road. He also backs up onto the track, however not as much, and ends up retiring. And now we see a replay of Graham Hill, who loses control of his car, ends up at the side of the road, and that is it for his race as well. Although I did hear that he also had a gearbox problem. As we now come around to towards the end of lap 2 now, and we move up into 10th. We saw a couple of cars at the side of the road. I kind of lost control there, but managed to regain control afterwards. We are now looking at Bruce McLaren coming around to finish lap 2 and post the fastest time of the session, which is quite nice for him, obviously. As we now take a look at Maston Gregory, who loses control of the number 38 coming into turn 1, ends up on the sandbank there, and he's slowly backing up onto the track, but eventually will end up retiring. And we now take a look at a replay of Jim Clark, who loses control of his Lotus, is all over the track, manages to regain control of it eventually, but then promptly starts to lose control once again. He crashes into the white and blue Scirocco Powell racing car there, and he's still wanting to go. He doesn't want to give up yet. However, he crashes into the hay bales there, well, drives into the hay bales, gets stuck. The AA kind of fails to figure out what's happening, and Jim Clark retires. Here we see a replay of Hap Sharp losing control of his car coming into the turn 7 there, and ends up with his car upside down, and that's the end of the race. As we now move on to lap 3, we just passed Gerhard Mitter in the Equipe Belgique Porsche there. We are now in 9th, chasing after De Beaufort. Somehow we managed to move up into 8th as we now come on to lap 4, chasing after Maurice Saint-Ignan, who is visibly in front of us, just half a second ahead. As we now see a replay of Bruce McLaren coming into the pits to retire, apparently with a gearbox problem, so that's his race over. As we come around on lap 5, Trintignant loses control of his car for a split second, which allows us to move up into 6th place, so we are now in the points Absolutely fantastic. Chasing after Richie Ginster now. Hopefully we'll be able to catch him soon. Maybe. As we now move on to lap 7. And eventually we do catch up to Richie Ginster, who is at the side of the road. There are 2 retirements and we move up into 4th position. That's absolutely fantastic news for Andy Higgs. Hopefully we can, well, go all the way to the end of the race, obviously. As we take a look at a replay of Giancarlo Baghetti, who loses his brakes coming into turn 7 there and goes straight off the map. And then we have a replay of Richie Ginster losing control of his car coming into turn 7. Ends up ramping off the sand dunes there. And on the side of another hill, he doesn't give up though. He tries to keep his car still in the race. As I now speed up the footage a bit, because this is quite a long and, well, interesting event. He tried to go for a bit, but then kind of gave up, and that's the end of his Dutch Grand Prix. As we now move on to the end of lap 9, chasing after John Surtees at this point. We are still in 4th, slowly catching up to Surtees, and we see a replay of Maurice Trintignant, who loses control of the number 17 car, ends up at the side of the road. As we speed up once more, he tries to bring the car back onto the track by reversing, which is quite an interesting way to do things. However, he gets stuck eventually and decides to retire from the track. As we now move on to lap 16, we've just caught up to John Surtees, and we go past him and move up into 3rd position as we pass a couple of back markers as well. So that was quite nice. Joe Bonnier is in 2nd, 44.5 seconds up the road. I'm not sure if we can catch him. However, it will be quite nice as we now move on to lap 21. Still chasing after Joe Bonnier, who pulled away from us quite a bit. So it looks like we might not be able to catch him, as we see a replay of Lorenzo Bandini, whose engine decided to give up, and he is out of the Dutch Grand Prix. As we now come around to start lap 23, Tony Maggs is in the pits. He's retired from the lead of the race, which is interesting, and that moves us into 2nd position. Very, very good news, as we now see a replay of Tony Maggs coming into the pits. Apparently he also had a gearbox problem, quite a few gearbox problems today here in Zandvoort, as we see John Surtees coming into the pits as well, also with a gearbox problem. So yeah, quite a few people had gearbox issues in this race. As we now move on to the final lap, lap 28, and Bonnier crosses the line to win the Dutch Grand Prix. I was unable to catch up to him, although given enough laps I probably could have eventually passed him. As we now take a look at Joe Bonnier coming around to take the checker flag and win the 1963 Dutch Grand Prix. Congratulations to Joe Bonnier. Sweden is probably very, very happy at this point, as we now come around to finish the race in 2nd position. After a very, very, very long time, we managed to finally not only finish the race but also score some much needed points. This is going to help us in the championship very much. As we take a look at the retirements, a lot of people retired. In fact, only 3 people finished the race. That's 21 retirements. It looks like we have a replay of the 1950s, where pretty much everyone retired except for 2, 3, 4 people in a race who managed to finish. I'm hoping that's not how the entire season will go, but you can never know. Anyway, here are the career statistics, and this was Andy's 114th Grand Prix. His best start is from 1st, has 8 pole positions, has set 17 fastest laps. His best finishes in 1st, has completed 74 races, 58 of them in the points, has won 35 Grand Prix, 4 at the Indianapolis 500, 6 in Monaco, has 7 championships under his belt, has scored a total of 394 laps, has retired 40 times, has experienced 2,471 out of 3,077 laps, has 6 bronze trophies, 10 silver trophies, 35 gold trophies, and as an extension, 35 podiums. And here is a quick look at the championship standings. John Surtees and Joe Bonnier sharing the lead of the 1963 Drivers' Championship. Lorenzo Bandini and Higgs sharing third. Brabham and Gerhard Mitter sharing fifth. The last person to score points is Innes Ireland down in ninth, and bringing up the rear of the standings is Joe Siffert down in 24th. So those are a few more points on the board. Thankfully, there were people who actually finished the race, although not all that many. Anyway, let's move on to the constructors now. And here, Ferrari and Rob Walker's team are sharing the lead of the Constructors' Championship. Lotus are in third. Brabham and Kip Marsbergen are sharing fourth. Owen Racing Organization are in sixth, and at the very bottom of the standings we see Siffert Racing Team down in 13th. So that was the Dutch Grand Prix. Finally, we managed to finish a race and also score some points. We haven't scored points in a very long time, so that's very refreshing and gives me new hope that maybe we can do decently this season. Maybe not win, but at least manage to finish somewhere in the top 3. That would be quite a nice thing to have. But anyway, that is the end of the Dutch Grand Prix. An interesting race, especially considering that only 3 people managed to finish the race, but overall quite fun, I would say. Our next race is the French Grand Prix at Reims, so looking forward to that. Should be interesting to see how things work out there. But that is the end of the video. Don't forget to vote for next season's team, link is in the description. I also have a second channel where I will be playing all sorts of different games. At the moment I'm doing a playthrough of Diablo 2 and Homefront, so if you're interested in any of those games, there will be a link in the description to that as well. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, thank you all so much for watching, and as always, stay sharp.